This is the second of 4 films that tell the story of how I was diagnosed with incurable prostate cancer and suddenly fell into a deep depression. The first film tells the story of my diagnosis, how I was wrongly diagnosed as psychotic with nihilistic delusions and given multiple psychiatric drugs that made my mental and physical state far, far worse. This film tells the story of what happened after I was taken by air ambulance to a psychiatric hospital in Aberdeen. The third film will tell of my experience of being given forced electroconvulsive therapy with absolutely no preparation, despite continuing to voice my strong objections. The fourth film will tell of my recovery despite 2 psychiatrists lying about my condition at a mental health tribunal and wishing to continue my confinement and my electroshock. I arrived in a side room of 5E ward at the Royal Cornhill Hospital in Aberdeen on the afternoon of the 30th of November 2021. I don't have any memory of the journey by road and air ambulances because I've been over-tranquillised with lorazepam by the sadistic nurse in Lerwick. I was on my own in a strange cell-like room. Instead of a normal bed, there was a platform with sides that sloped inwards towards the floor. There were no coat hooks or door handles. Because my work is architecture related, it's something that I noticed. Unfortunately, the nurses took this as evidence that I was looking for ways to commit suicide. They took the laces out of my boots and took away my belt and anything else they thought that I might use to hang myself. They put me on 24-hour suicide watch, which meant that there was always a nurse sitting in the doorway to my room watching me, which was a very unnerving experience. After a couple of days, they seemed to realise that this was pointless, and they changed to 15-minute observations. Before being admitted to hospital in Lerwick, I'd been extremely depressed, but I'd still been able to function relatively normally. A couple of weeks previously, I'd driven on my own from Lancashire to Orkney, with my cousin following behind in his car, and navigated through Inverness. The deterioration of my mental and physical state after I entered hospital in Lerwick was dramatic, and I'm in no doubt that it was caused by the drugs as well as by the confinement. I was extremely drowsy, apathetic and fuzzy-headed, and no one told me at the time that I was being given high doses of an antipsychotic and an antidepressant, a combination usually reserved for so-called treatment-resistant depression, where other drug treatments had failed over a prolonged period, when this was my first ever treatment. The antipsychotic was olanzapine, also called Zytiga. It's a powerful drug used to dampen down intrusive thoughts in schizophrenia and the mania associated with manic depression. It produces profound sedation accompanied by emotional flattening, indifference and lethargy. I've now read that most people find the experience of taking antipsychotics extremely unpleasant, but accept them because they dampen down intrusive thoughts. I wasn't psychotic before I entered hospital, although my mood was very flat. Reading my notes from the first days in hospital in Aberdeen, it seems that I've been reduced to a zombie-like state, still profoundly despairing but now needing help to get undressed and encouragement to eat, unable to walk to the toilet or dining room without help, with muddled thoughts and unable to express myself clearly. Profound sedation, indifference and lethargy are accurate descriptions of my state. I was also in the early weeks of androgen deprivation therapy for cancer, with my body adapting to the sudden absence of testosterone. I was also deficient in vitamin B12. I was being given intermittent diazepam, which is usually given for the anxiety caused by antidepressants. The consultant psychiatrist and doctor did not seem to understand that the drugs were making my condition much, much worse. I'd lost the constant mental and physical stimulations that I experienced every day in my previous busy life, had been abandoned by my cousin, had been given a terminal diagnosis, my cognition was badly impaired, I was having no exercise, couldn't go outside the ward, and was being held in solitary confinement far away from any familiar surroundings or people, and I had no way of contacting any of my friends to tell them where I was. The forced inactivity and confinement was the worst possible environment for anyone on androgen deprivation therapy, as exercise, particularly resistance training, is essential to combat the muscle wastage and loss of bone density that it causes. My notes record that I spent most of my days drowsing on top of the bed, but what they didn't record was that I was entering a vivid alternative reality, which must have been induced by the multiple drugs that I was given. It was like a dream, but for many days I returned to the same scenes whenever I dozed, and it had its own internal logic. I don't know how long it lasted, but it must have been for over a week, as my notes say that I told a doctor on the 7th of December and an OT worker on the 8th that I was a stowaway on a ship. If I close my eyes, I can still mentally walk around the ship. There was an outer deck, and I could see people sitting at tables and chairs behind glass screens when I stood next to the ship's rail. I could go through a gap in the screens and through double doors into a long corridor lined with wood panelling, with doors opening to the right into what looked like stewards' rooms. Near the end of the corridor was a dining room. We were sailing towards land, which was visible in the far distance to the right. On one occasion I was in the corridor, and to avoid one of the ship's crew who was coming towards me, I went through a door on the left. This took me down a long grey steel staircase to a big empty space in the bowels of the ship. If I close my eyes, I can still see the notices fixed to the wall at the bottom of the grey painted stairs, as well as a skylight far above me as I lay on my back in the darkness. One time I lay down to go to sleep, but suddenly the thrum of the engine stopped, and I became very cold. I became worried that no one knew that I was there, and I had become hypothermic. I was very relieved when the heat returned. Later, I had a different dream, or hallucination, or whatever it was. This didn't recur in the same way that the stowaway one did. I was in the dark outside a large detached sandstone house in the arts and crafts style. If I close my eyes, I can still see it now. It was on a hillside, and I could see the lights of a town in the distance below. There was a light outside the porch. It was approached by an asphalt driveway through pine trees. There was no one there, so I went into the porch, then through a doorway on the right-hand side of an entrance hall. I was trespassing. I heard some people arrive and start talking in the hallway, and I was worried that they would come into the room where I was instead of going through the other door into the main house. So I got down on the floor and hid behind some furniture in the hope that they wouldn't see me. My notes record that I was found on the floor, and there's a full assessment report in my notes. They say that I was confused and frail, when until around 2 months previously I'd been going running regularly. The theme of these dreams, or whatever they should be called, was that I was an intruder who shouldn't be in the hospital, and this is reflected in my notes. I was also concerned that I could no longer think coherently. I have 2 degrees and a professional job, but my thoughts were now muddled and I couldn't express myself properly. My notes record that I asked for my cognition to be tested. I have no doubt that this was caused by the drugs, probably combined with the androgen deprivation therapy. I can now see what was written about me by the doctors and nurses, and know about the drugs that I was given. Obviously, I knew nothing about this at the time. I will quote from some of the notes. First, no evidence of psychotic symptoms since admission. This wrongly states that I was commenced on sertraline by a GP when I wasn't. and I didn't take the tablets. I'd been given sertraline for the first time 4 days before and had already had the dose trebled. This is by Dr. B. Nihilistic, catastrophic beliefs. Eyes closed much of the time, odd eye muscle movements, not appearing to respond to external stimuli. Will increase and maximise sertraline in due course. So her reaction to seeing me in this state was to increase the dose of one of the drugs that was causing it. This is on the 4th of December. Jay voiced the feeling that it was too late for things to improve with him. He would like his cognition to be investigated. I was told nothing about the drugs that were given to me, and I was concerned that I could no longer think properly and was genuinely going mad. 5th of December. More negative in conversation. He said that there was no point and he wasn't going to get better. The 7th of December. Dr. B. Nihilistic thoughts and delusional beliefs regarding being a criminal stowaway. No actual perceptual disturbance, he admits. Not actively suicidal, no plans to or intent. Doesn't think he will get better and isn't sure he wants to. Plan. Olanzapine to 15 milligrams in divided doses. Mirtazapine 15 milligrams nocturnal. ECT is a consideration. So, just more and more drugs in the hope that my attitude will become positive. This is Dr. M. Given 5 milligrams of diazepam this AM. Evidence of sedation. Complains of being drugged up. Struggling to keep eyes open or remain awake. Discussion ended due to sedation. Consider ECT. This is the 8th of December. A note by the occupational therapist. Very nihilistic in conversation. Believes he was a stowaway on a ship. In the evening, the nurses wrote, doubly incontinent, required a lot of reassurance to accept his medication this morning. 3 members of staff were required to assist with his personal care. He was walked through to the dining area for lunch and had an adequate intake. So I was in one hell of a state by then. This is Dr. B. Transferred to Drum yesterday, describing utterly nihilistic delusions that he would say began August 21. Well, my depression actually started at the beginning of October. Then she says, possibly secondary to diagnosis of prostate cancer. So I find it unbelievable that she could write that when I'd never been depressed before and I'd been given the diagnosis of terminal cancer. Then she says, knows he is unwell but feels it is too late and the situation is utterly hopeless. Feels over-sedated by medicine that he is only taking with maximum encouragement. Contact ECT and make a referral. I was told absolutely nothing about the drugs and why they were forcing me to take them. They increased them to 150 milligrams of sertraline, 15 milligrams of olanzapine, then 15 milligrams of mirtazapine, which is another type of so-called antidepressant. This is the 9th of December, Dr. B again. It's too late and there's absolutely no hope of recovery. Believes he is wasting away, his mind has gone. Plan. Prepare for ECT. Request by email has kindly already been made by Dean Mustry. Aim for ECT if possible, Tuesday the 14th of December, if mental state continues as current or deteriorates. I knew absolutely nothing about it at the time, but I know now that they started to plan to give me electroconvulsive therapy. Dr. B submitted a form to the Mental Welfare Commission for Scotland on the 9th of December, asking for a second opinion under the 2003 Act. She exaggerates my situation to the point of lying about it. She says that I've been unwell for 3 times longer than I had been. She makes no mention of the first drug treatment being less than 2 weeks previously. Says that I'm refusing to eat and drink when my notes show that although I wasn't eating much, I ate something every day until then. It also says that I was refusing medication or only taking it with maximum encouragement, when my notes show that I refused one of the 2 daily drug sessions 3 times in 10 days and had been told absolutely nothing about what they were forcing me to take. Why did she lie? This is Dr. M, the consultant in old age psychiatry, on the 14th of December. Very flat, requires assistance to toilet, lying in bed, poor eye contact, wants to go to sleep, reluctant to discuss his thoughts further, wants to sleep. Plan, sertraline to 200 milligrams. Ensure prep done for ECT, aim 17th of December. I now know that by this stage they were giving me every day 200 milligrams of sertraline, 15 milligrams of olanzapine, 15 milligrams of mirtazapine, and diazepam frequently. This is the 15th of December. A note by physiotherapy. He was lying on top of his bed wearing hospital pyjamas. He reports that he felt hopeless and nothing would get him better. He's unsure why he's here. Reports to being very constipated. I couldn't encourage him to get up. I note that he might be having ECT treatment. I became extremely concerned because I was very constipated and no one was doing anything about it other than offering the unpleasant tasting laxatives. I now know that all the drugs that I was given this constipation as a side effect, and that olanzapine can cause severe constipation. I'd always had a high fibre diet and been regular, and didn't know that it was possible to go for so long without having a shit. It took 3 weeks before the ward GP administered suppositories and an enema and got things moving for the first time since I'd arrived in Aberdeen. This is a note by Dr. B on the 16th of December. More willing to engage, utterly preoccupied with nihilistic delusions. Again, how could she say this about someone with incurable cancer? And how could she expect involuntary detention and being drugged out of my mind to cure my nihilism? Appetite, he says, is better. He tells me he's taking his meds, but they're drugging him and making him sedated. Staff confirmed that eating more, and with encouragement taking meds, engaging a bit more, albeit with a very negative mood, congruent delusional way, whatever that means. Plan, await second opinion. This is the 18th of December. The nurse at 2 o'clock in the morning, writing about the previous evening. Definitely more relaxed, offering better eye contact. He remained facially flat, but has engaged better with staff. Nihilistic speech content continues. 19th of December, the nurse, again in the early hours of the morning. Jay remained in his bed during the evening, but appearing brighter and more willing to engage with staff. Continues to express negative thoughts. Accepted good intake at supper time and all medications. This is the 20th of December. This is Dr. B. Still awaiting DMP, that's the designated medical practitioner who's supposed to examine me and offer a second opinion before authorising ECT. Describes nihilistic delusions that his brain isn't functioning, especially preoccupied with his bowels not moving. Believes he shouldn't be in hospital. He is eating small amounts and coming to dining room mostly. Describes anergia, exhaustion, anhedonia, lack of concentration. Understands he's on a section of Mental Health Act and that potentially this will run for another week only. Will need compulsory treatment order. Awaiting second opinion on ECT. ECT can go ahead tomorrow assuming he's fully prepared. Increase mirtazapine to 30 milligrams. This is the 21st of December. Ward round. Engaging more, eating better, takes medication with prompting. Very nihilistic and negative and hopeless. Awaiting second opinion. Compulsory treatment order, paperwork to be completed. Hopefully ECT Friday. This is Dr. B again. Spoke to Dr. Rook, designated medical practitioner, who will kindly arrange a Teams, that's a Microsoft Teams meeting, at 2:30 today to virtually assess Jay for T3, which is the form that he's got to fill in. Staff aware of this. Dr. M, who's the consultant, more animated, many physical preoccupations, hopeless of future, does not want to die, but believes this will happen anyway. AIM, ECT 24th of December, will require compulsory treatment order. This is the 21st, engaging in occupational therapy. Gained 2 kilograms last week. Increased intake. This is the 22nd of December. The nurse in the afternoon. Continues to spend most of his day in bed. He has been slightly brighter today, voicing that he planned on coming to the dining room for meals and was greeting staff in the morning. Facially more animated than usual and smiling at times. He has voiced that he still feels constipated. 23rd of December. The nurse. Jay has had a pleasant day and has engaged well with staff. Jay requested a mocha today, having done one previously and not scoring well. Scored 29 out of 30. Attended for all meals and has had a good fluid and nutritional intake. Jay has also spent time in the day room watching TV. So, I was gradually improving as my body was adjusting to the drugs, but I was blissfully unaware of what was to be done to me the next day, Christmas Eve, to cure my negative thoughts. Please watch the next film to find out what was done.